www.flizzmusic.com.
Welcome everybody. This is You Ain't Up on This podcast, and today we have Providence Mayor Smiley in the building. So we're gonna be doing what we do, but today we're not lifting any weights again. We're gonna have it, more chill style, calm down style. So tune in, y'all, because this is what we're doing today. All right. Brett, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
See, he's happy to be here. That's what we're doing. We're not gonna delve all deep in like politics or anything, because that's what people think is gonna, no, we're not doing that. So first, I would like you to tell the people, what is your background? Who are you?
Yeah. So I didn't grow up in Rhode Island. I actually grew up outside of Chicago. Lived there through college. I went to DePaul, downtown Chicago, and I had kind of a different college experience in that I lived by myself in an apartment. I hopped on the L every day. I went to business school, which was in an office building downtown Chicago. So it kind of felt like I was, living in the city from as soon as I hit college. And I started working and going to school at the same time. And realized actually that I liked work more than I liked school. And I stayed on for graduate school, but was a night student, worked during the day, went to school at night. And then kind of fell into politics. I wasn't supposed to go into politics. I studied finance. I figured I'd do that because that's what my dad did. I didn't have a better idea. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine ran for city council in Chicago. And he was a personal friend. I don't come from a political family. Nobody in my family's ever run for anything before. I mean, we voted, but that was about it. Mm-hmm. So a buddy of mine ran for city council, and I started volunteering for him. And I thought, oh, this is pretty great. And so after his campaign was over, I graduated with my master's and decided I wanted to work on campaigns some more. And so I went to Pittsburgh and did a race there. I came back to suburban Illinois to do a race there. Then I went to California. Did a race in California, and then from California I moved to Providence, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. And 2006 I was hired as the campaign manager for the governor's race that year, a guy named Charlie Fogarty, who was lieutenant governor. I moved here in January of 06. In February of 06, I'd been here like 4 weeks. I went on what ended up being my first date with the man who's now my husband. Mm-hmm. And he's a native Rhode Islander. Yep. And so, when you marry a Rhode Islander, you marry Rhode Island. And so that
I agree.
That's how it goes. So,
it's like you see people who I'm getting out of here. Like most of them always end up like right back, like, hey, it's your place. This is you.
I got to tell you, and over the years now, having run for office and being elected office, I've talked to a lot of people, knocking on doors and otherwise. And I'll ask people, how'd you end up in Rhode Island? They're like, oh, I married a Rhode Islander. And like, me too. I mean, it's a very common theme out there. So that campaign we lost, but I stayed, and a year later got married, started a business here, ran a business for many years, and started to get more and more involved here in Providence politics and Providence government. Worked for Mayor Cicilline when he was mayor, worked for Mayor Tavares when he was mayor, worked for Mayor Lorza when he was mayor, and then Governor Raimondo, and ran for office last year and got elected mayor. So, my family, my mom and my brother are still in the town I grew up in outside of Chicago. Mm-hmm. My dad's now in Florida. So the kind of traditional Florida migration like a lot of parents do. But I'm still the only one here, and my husband's got family here, but my family's all still in Chicago.
So at what point do you think you're moving to Florida?
Hopefully never. I say that now, hopefully never. I don't know. We could ask each other when we're like 80 where we end up. But to me it sounds like a terrible idea, but I think it changes as you get older.
But you sound seasoned. See, I didn't know all that stuff about your background.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, like all the political things, all the background. Did you kind of, all right, I'll relate it to this, right? With me, I was always the background guy, and like as a young guy in the groups. And I figured I'm always helping people out. And I felt, I'm not gonna lie, I felt a little slighted at some point. No one's helping me out. So I decided I'm gonna become the guy.
Yeah.
And was that kind of like that with you, or did you just smoothly was there any kind of feeling like I'm gonna be the mayor instead of being the man behind the mayor or the governor or something?
I had some great jobs. I mean, I was the chief operating officer of the city. I was the chief of staff to the governor.
Yeah.
Those are kind of like the top jobs as a staff person, and they were great, and I have no complaints. And I thought maybe I'll just do this because when you get elected, it comes with a lot of other nonsense that you don't have to worry about if you're the staff person.
Yep.
But there is a difference. Like at the end of the day, I thought I had influence. I gave good advice. I got to be at the table for some really important, meaningful decisions. But at the end of the day, it's the elected official who gets to make the final decision. And there's no staff job that has that authority. Right. And so I think that's what was something that I just felt like I really wanted to have the chance to do that. The other thing I will say is I'm not someone who ran for office because I wanted to run for office. I ran for mayor because I wanted to be mayor. And I've seen a lot of people, the benefit of having done what I've done, I've seen a lot of people who run for office because of ego. They want to see their name on a yard sign. They want to see their face on television, and they just run for something. And I get that. I have an ego and it can be tempting, don't get me wrong, but like I try to be disciplined, and I think it helps that I've seen a lot of people run for office over the years to make sure I really want to actually do the job that I'm running for. Because I've seen people run for offices that I don't think they're actually passionate about that office. They just want to run for something. And I never wanted to be that person. City government, the mayor's office, is the thing I'm passionate about, and that's the job I wanted to do. I didn't want to run for city council. I didn't want to run for state rep. I didn't want to be the general treasurer. I wanted to be mayor because I believe in the work that we can do in the mayor's office. Nice. And so I think that was the difference. And hopefully I keep that same discipline going forward. I don't know what the future's going to hold, but you want to vote for people who actually want to do the work. And they're just not looking for the glory, you know?
I hear that.
Yeah.
That's true. Same thing in like most arts, you know, like you're kind of like, hey, are you passionate about this? You want to sound cool. What are some of the things that you're passionate about being there?
So, like at this point in my life, in my career, I'm kind of a government guy. And so I'm passionate about, and it sounds boring, but I do think it matters, about just running government well. I really think that you can make a difference in people's lives by just making things work better. You know, when I started my campaign a year ago, there was a lot of pressure to come up with some big vision, some lofty promise, some, you know, incredible aspiration. And my aspiration is to make Providence really well run, with an excellent school system where things just work easily, where neighborhoods are clean and safe. And because I think that's what we do. And I think most people, my view is that most people kind of go about their business, they're worried about their kids, they're worried about their jobs, they're worried about their lives. And if we can just like make that other stuff easy to make, you know, so we actually fix their sidewalk that's been aggravating them for forever, the garbage actually gets picked up on time, that there's snow, you know, when it snows, that we actually plow well, to like make people free and comfortable just kind of living their lives because we're taking care of what we're supposed to take care of. I think we can do that. And so I'm really excited about that. The other thing that, you know, I think has been the hardest part of this job, and I think will be the hardest part, is to really try to make progress in our schools. It's hard. I know I get frustrated because there are some really good things happening. And if you kind of pick up the paper, you talk to people and say, what's going on in Providence schools? People think it's a disaster. They think it's terrible. That's all they read or hear. The reality is we've got some brilliant kids and some excellent teachers and really good principals. It's not quite as simple as this, but my observation has been that it is possible to do really well in the Providence schools. But very often what that requires is a parent or a caretaker who knows how to be an advocate for their kid to make sure their kid doesn't get lost in the shuffle. A teacher along the way who will keep an eye on, take you under your wing. And in a system as big as Providence, there's a lot of kids who do get lost, who either don't have parents who know how to be advocates for them, or working 2 or 3 jobs, so they just can't. They're new to this country, maybe they don't know what they need to do for their kids, or you kind of get bad luck and you get teachers who are out all year and all you have are temporary subs. So there's no one really keeping an eye on you. And so I think the work is to figure out how to make sure that those kids, the ones that don't have their own advocate, don't get lost and don't fall through the cracks. Because if you look at the kind of overall test scores, they're not where they need to be. People need to do better. If you look at attendance and graduation and test scores and all the things, like you can tell from the data that we need to do better. But it doesn't tell the whole story, because I think what ends up happening is you get all this negativity around our schools, and the reality is we've got some brilliant students who are doing great, and they are tough and resilient, and they go through a lot of stuff and they succeed nevertheless. It's making sure the rest of those kids don't fall through the cracks. And it's like the best part of my week is when I get to spend a couple hours with students. And because I'm full of energy afterwards. Like it's motivating, it's encouraging. They're great kids, and there's so much bureaucracy. There's so many adults involved that it just seems like it's harder than it should be. Lots of people who don't want to take responsibility, and lots of people who just kind of point the finger and pass the buck because they don't want to be the one to make the decision.
It's tough.
Yep. So kind of sorting through all of that in 6 months on the job, we've not figured it out yet, but we're going to stay at it. And I know it's the single most important thing we can do.
That's going to be constant. I worked with kids for 23 years now, and everything you said, I found myself on both sides of that.
Yeah.
So I feel everything you just said is so true, because it's like the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah, right.
So sometimes you will fall into the trap of, everything is messed up, but it's not. Sometimes you fixate on the things that are messed up because it's loud.
Right.
There's a lot of beautiful things, and I myself, honestly, this is something that people who know me know this. I fell victim to that a few years ago, to where I'm like, all right, these teenagers are all terrible. Everything is like jacked up. Then I have my niece but she went to Temple, graduated. Then people in my family, then other kids. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm fixated on this because that's my career. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So I everything you just said, I feel you. And at one point, I was a teacher myself for a year in a behavior school that was hands off.
Right.
So so I see teachers, like I see their issues too, where it's like they need help too. You just can't say, there's bad teachers and that, there's two sides of everything. I just wanted to point that out, because everything you said was sparking something in me. It's something that I went through. So it bothers me.
Culture and morale really matter. And if it's just this culture of negativity, then it becomes self-fulfilling, right? And so I don't know. It's a very difficult challenge to try to solve, but I'm really committed to trying to move the needle and to try to change that culture and to try to raise that morale.
Yeah, it's not always easy to be positive, but
no,
it's crazy. It's work.
Yeah.
But next question I want to ask is, what do you do for recreation?
So I'm a runner, and I've been a runner my whole life. I was never any good at team sports, and I wasn't particularly coordinated hand-eye coordination, so don't give me a baseball bat or a basketball. I'm the same way with anything with a stick in my hand. I can't do.
No good.
I
can box, I can wrestle, I can play football, I can even shoot a basketball. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but
so I started running. I started running track in 8th grade, and I've basically run my whole life.
All right.
And so I run 4 or 5 days a week in the morning early, and that's my both mental health and recreation.
Yeah.
So that's probably the single most important thing outside of work that I can't afford to lose. And it's both fun for me and healthy for me. This job in particular, I work a lot. Before all this, I used to love to travel. I can't really travel anymore, and I don't want to waste a single day of the next 4 or 8 years. But I do love seeing new places. I've been to a lot of places in this country, which is pretty cool. I think I'm done. I think I've seen 44 of the 50 states.
Really?
Yeah. So
all right.
I got 6 to go.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I'm kind of jealous. I'm not gonna lie.
Alaska, Hawaii, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Those are the 6 I haven't been to. and like North Dakota, Oklahoma. I'm not sure when I'm going to check those off the box, but Alaska, Hawaii, I'd like to see. Yeah.
And no disrespect to a few of those states, but those are the states people shout, "I gotta go here."
Yeah, right.
Like Hawaii, you know, like
Where am I on my summer vacation? North Dakota.
Oh yeah, North Dakota. Right. That sounds about the spot,
right.
You know.
Right, but I've been to 44 others, and
yep,
it's pretty great. It's fun to see.
All right. Mayor, what music do you listen to?
This is where it always gets me in trouble because I'm not like a big music guy. So I go on the radio once a month with Gene Valcenti, and I take calls from callers, answer questions about the city. People say their garbage didn't get picked up, or what are you doing about this, that, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I embarrassed myself. My staff at City Hall was all cringing because I had no idea who Pitbull was. And so Gene Valcenti, who's like 20 years older than me, was making fun of me on the radio. But the reality, so I listen to. I'm like an old man trapped in a middle-aged man's body. So I listen to a lot of like 60s and 70s music.
Okay.
A lot of like folk rock and I suppose more modern. I think the last concert I went to was a Ben Folds concert. So it's kind of like mellow folk rock. It's a little bit my scene. But honestly, I'm not a big music guy. Probably the coolest thing about me musically, which is totally out of character, was the first concert I ever went to was a Nirvana concert.
All right.
My big brother took me. I was in high school, and so he's like, "Come on, you're going to this concert with me." Little did I know that it would end up being like something you'd tell your kids about. You know, it was before Kurt Cobain died, and it was in Chicago at a club late at night. It was totally out of character, but I'm not a big music guy. I know you are, and I'm embarrassed to confess it. But
so when you're running and you got to get geared up to do stuff running,
I don't listen to anything.
Just quiet?
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
No earbuds, nothing.
All right.
Yeah.
No judgment, but I can't do anything like that. I need to be aggressive with or active without music.
Yeah.
Like as this gym is being set up, there'll be speakers and stuff in here.
Yeah.
Like I just need it to get souped up. You know, I can't. You know, it's like me personally. Quiet is loud to me. Silence is loud.
Yeah.
I can't even go to sleep without a fan on or a TV. I just can't be quiet.
There you go. Yeah, not my thing. So I mean, like in terms of the arts and stuff, I go to a lot of theater. I go to a lot of theater here in Providence, and when I get to go to New York, I'll go see a show there. We go to Trinity Rep a lot. I go to the Jam sometimes. Millbury's great. I mean, we've got like great theater, and I enjoy that a lot in terms of the arts. But music's just kind of not my thing.
No, I'm with you on the theater though. Just as a side note, theater, like I love theater. I actually was blessed to. You ever heard of Mixed Magic Theater?
Sure. Yeah.
I was blessed to do a play there called Strength of Our Fathers with Ricardo Smiley. And he actually taught me how to transition a lot of the acting skill onto the stage with music.
Nice.
And you can command a crowd standing right there with theatrics and making you believe it.
Yeah.
So shout out to Ricardo Wiley. Shout out to Mixed Magic Theater. Shout out to Rudy Cabrera too. He's one of the actors in Providence who's pretty famous. I don't know if you've probably seen it even in the theater because he does so much. Yeah.
I mean, the thing about the theater, in addition to, kind of like helps you empathize and walk through other people's shoes. I mean, it's just kind of the other thing that maybe it's like music for others, but for me, it's like 2 hours or 3 hours, however long it is, that I actually turn my phone off. That you're not getting distracted by all the notifications and checking your phone and looking at text and all this business, that you can like just focus and concentrate. I like going to the movies. I like going to the movies for that reason too, as opposed to watching them at home, because you can actually lose yourself and focus, as opposed to, we live in this world. I have 2 cell phones. They're always going off. It's like,
I could imagine.
Like low key drives you crazy all the time.
Yep.
And so it's nice to be in a place where you can just like put the phone down, lose yourself in something else, and that's relaxing.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm going to ask you this because I'm a movie guy too. I didn't think about asking this, but what type of movies? What type of movies do you go to?
Yeah, so I mean, I watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of different types of movies. I think, like the best movie I saw last year maybe was, I don't know if you saw The Menu.
No.
Outstanding. Okay. It's like a satire on people who are obsessive foodies, who get ridiculous about taking pictures of food and everything has to be perfect and what does it mean and all that, like the food that's not really a real meal, like they bring out foam and it's like not a real, and it's absurd, it goes over the top. Amazing.
All right.
Highly recommend it. It was nominated for an Academy Award last year, I think. It was terrific.
I'll put that on the list.
You should put that on the list. I just watched that Meet the Fablemans, which is about Steven Spielberg, about making movies, which was actually pretty good. I saw that on an airplane last week. I watch a ton of movies. I don't watch all the superhero movies, which I know are really popular, but...
I do. I'm a nerd.
Are you?
I'm a big, huge nerd.
Are you like a DC or a Marvel guy? Because
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter to you.
Like, to be honest, I like movies.
Yeah.
Like, if it's on TV, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
If it's on the theater, it's especially if it's special effects, I'm going to see it.
Yeah. So anyway, I love movies.
Yeah. What's your top 5 best show you've seen in the theater that you hold like, hey, you know what?
Okay, that's a great question. So I think the top is a show. They actually just did it at Trinity, although I saw it in New York, called The Inheritance.
All right.
It's a 2-parter. This is like a marathon. So we watch the first part in a matinee, 3 hours, then you go to dinner, you come back for part 2, another 3 hours, like 6 hours of theater.
All right.
And it's a saga about the AIDS crisis in New York, and a collection of friends who go through the AIDS crisis in the 80s in New York. By the end of the second act, like the entire theater is sobbing. It was so emotional. It was so good. It's really excellent. And they just did it at Trinity. They did a great job here. It's a big show. It's a hard show to do in a small theater like that. I mean, it's a major production, but it's excellent. I think it's the best thing I've ever seen on stage. I do like musicals, and musicals are fun. Les Mis is like a classic. Great music. Find me somebody who doesn't like Les Mis, and there's something wrong with that person. Like, you don't have to like theater to like that show. I do like Shakespeare a great deal, and saw Hamlet on stage. It was excellent. The Crucible, which is roughly based on the Salem witch trials, I saw is really, really good. A Strange Loop is pretty cool.
I've never heard of that one.
Black playwright from Yale, and it's about a black man who is figuring out that he's gay. He works in the theater and lives in the South, and it's all the kind of intersectional issues of homophobia and religion and race, and it's excellent. And then there's a same playwright, very provocative show called A Slave's Play, also intersection of race and relationships. It's intermixed couples, 3 intermixed couples, and it is probably the most shocking thing I've ever seen on stage. Ended up winning a Tony and a Pulitzer Prize. Really provocative, really good conversation that came out of it, and I think spawned a whole new generation of playwrights as a result of it. And I'm sure it will make the rounds because it just came out of New York, and it is excellent. I'm not sure it's like age appropriate for little kids, but for young adults and for adults, I think everyone should see it. It kind of blew my mind.
All right.
I
knew I think more than half the list, but then at the end you started naming things. I was like, I've never heard.
Yeah, I see some. I try to see some interesting, challenging, thought-provoking work. I will say, put a local plug in for Trinity here. They're doing Sweeney Todd, which is another fun musical.
I know about Sweeney Todd.
I don't know, it's fun, but twisted musical about a barber who starts killing people.
But
the music's great, and it's doing so well that they've just extended it. So if you're a local theater goer, go buy a ticket to see Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, I try to support everything like local.
I'm
just that kind of guy.
I think it got extended into July. It was supposed to end in June, but it's doing really well. And those folks all live in Providence. They're like local professional actors in our community. that are super involved. They do a lot of classes with schools here in Providence. So like it's good to support them because they're a big part of our community.
Nice.
And it's like, you never know. I'm a big believer in the arts for kids. Not that everyone's going to grow up to be an artist, but that spark of imagination, that unusual experience that maybe they never had before. It really kind of, I remember the first time I took my nephew to the theater, and he's an electrician now. Like he's not a theater guy, but but the first time he went, I don't know, he was 13, 14 at the time. He's on the edge of his seat, just like, because he's never seen anything like that before, you know, and it's just like to expose young people to that, I think is so great. And maybe it's not their thing, maybe it is, but just so that they can experience it and see that, you know, what you were talking about, like see people express themselves on stage in a way that, you know, is probably super uncomfortable for most people. They can't imagine themselves doing it. People are generally afraid of public speaking and things like that.
Yes.
But it's, I think it can really spark imagination and creativity in young people. And so Trinity, PPAC, a bunch of local arts organizations do a lot in our schools to make sure the kids have exposure to the arts here in Providence.
Yes.
Which is great.
Well, to wrap this up, I always ask this question too. What do you want people to know about yourself, or what's to come, or what you're doing? Anything you want them to know, that throw it out there.
The beautiful thing about Providence is truly anyone can get involved. Like, it's not hard. And so I guess that's what I want people to know, is that there's a seat at the table for every member of this community. All you gotta do is raise your hand, reach out, show up at a meeting, and it's a super easy place to get involved. Now, I mentioned earlier about my background. At one point, I worked in California. California is not an easy place to get involved. It's so big. Generally, unless you have money or power or influence, you don't get access.
Okay.
That's not true here in Providence. Like, anybody can meet the mayor, anybody can meet the governor, frankly. And so if you don't like the way things are going in your neighborhood, if you think you've got something to offer, get involved. Reach out to our office, show up at a public meeting, show up and like get engaged in the process. It's actually really easy, and we welcome it. I welcome it, the city council welcomes it. We're gonna be doing a big planning process this year about development. This is things like, how big should the house next to mine be allowed to be? And should there be a bike lane in my neighborhood? That kind of stuff. Like, just like show up at the community meeting. It is discouraging sometimes.
Show up, y'all. You heard the word show up.
We do these meetings at the public library. There'll be like 10 people there. And honestly, it's the same 10 people at every meeting. And that's okay, it's good for them, but there's a lot of voices that aren't in that conversation. So show up.
Yes.
Show up. It's like they say about voting. If you don't vote, you can't complain about it. It's kind of like this. If you don't show up, you can't complain about it. We try to make it easy. We do online surveys. We do a lot of stuff by Zoom if that's easier. We do a lot of in-person meetings. We do them in every corner of the city, even though it's a small city. We know that every neighborhood's a little different. So there's a bunch of ways to get involved, whether it's easier to do it from home, from your kitchen table, or to do it at your neighborhood. Get involved, show up. That's what I want people to hear.
You heard it straight from the man himself.
Right.
Show up.
www.flizzmusic